What was something that shocked you when you visited a foreign country? How truly polite the Japanese are, and how unbelievably clean the cities of Japan are. Polite to a fault, in my opinion. I'd rather you be honest than fake, and people seem to sugarcoat things in Japan. Unless you're fat. Japanese people have no problem pointing out that you're chunky. Then you'd love Germany or Russia. Most East Asians. Getting massages in Singapore, and being told you are nice and squishy. I like massaging really fat people. Sure, it was true but very ducking. Blunt. My Japanese boss loves to shout jishin jishin, earthquake, earthquake, whenever the fat employee passes by him. How corrupt the police force is in Mexico. My company has a factory in Mexico and we always hire the same driver for gringos coming to visit. Once when I was there we got pulled over, and our driver told us to give him a $20 to bribe the cop. The driver and the cop then start having an argument in Spanish and eventually the cop radios someone, takes our $20 and goes. I asked the driver what that was all about and apparently he had a deal with the chief of police that his fares only had to pay the Mexican bribe not the American bribe, and the cop had to call the station to double check that the deal was legit. It is not a bribe, it is a cash fine, without a receipt. When I moved to the Netherlands a few years ago from the USA, I deliberately wrote down the things that struck me as strange a few weeks into it, because I knew I wouldn't remember later, and here are a few. Bicycles are everywhere, and are a far more common mode of transport than cars, yet no one wears helmets. A Dutch person telling you I speak a little English is like Stephen Hawking saying I know a little physics. I really had no idea it could be so easy to move to another country where you don't speak the language, and that's because the Dutch are so amazing at English, unlike other countries. For example, TV here isn't dubbed, but instead in original language and just subtitled. I heard a theory that there is actually no such language as Dutch. Dutch people actually all speak English, and the Dutch is just made up gobbledygook they speak to each other when there is an English speaker around, to make them think there is a Dutch language. When the English speaker is out of earshot, they revert to their native English. As theories go, it's quite a good one. Wat bedoel je daarmee te zeggen? Natuurlijk is het niet. Okay guys, he's gone. So about that bicycle you bought. Trains in India. Furious fighting, shoving, scratching, and clawing to get on. Then for the rest of the 8-hour journey scrupulous I'm so sorry I brushed your foot with mine politeness. You want politeness, go to Tokyo. The trains are jammed, and a couple of times I have had men in uniform with white gloves gently pressing the crowd on board. Elderly Japanese women will simply poke their knuckle into a secret pressure point in your back that will make you move forward in agony. I have never been so happy to be 6'1" as when I'm jammed on those trains. Southeast Asia never fails to amaze. Here's a few top experiences. Hanoi, Vietnam. Sweet looking old woman, looks like late 80s, but was probably younger, shuffles up to a street corner where we are waiting to cross the street. She leans her back against a sturdy tree right next to us, looks me directly in the eye, and while maintaining eye contact lifts up her dress and starts to take a massive shot against the base of the tree. Even cracks a little smile mid-process. Siem Reap, Cambodia. Teenaged girl feigning tears approaches us asking for milk money for her baby. I look at the baby in her arms, and it is that unmistakable bluish/white/purplish shade that indicates it is clearly dying. We continue on our way and eventually see another girl doing the same thing, then another, and another. After the fourth one we finally realized, even though it was a different girl each time, it was always the same ducking baby. They just hand the poor thing over from one to the next to keep the scam going. I'm 100% convinced that baby was dead by the end of the week. I lived in Japan for a year. The satellite radio at my school had a channel called Rocky that played the Rocky theme song on a loop 24/7. They also have two channels called Alibi. One is an endless loop of the noise of passing cars and pedestrian chatter, and the other is a din of a pachinko gambling parlor. They are intended to be used as background noise when you call your wife and lie about where you are. You know you are having a good time when telling your wife you are at a gambling parlor is the safer move. How small all of the fruit was in England. One apple in the US is like 2 UK apples. I went through a lot of apples. When I went to New York I couldn't get over how familiar everything looked on my first day there. I must have seen way more films and TV shows filmed in Manhattan than I realized, but pretty much everywhere looked exactly as I expected it to. I know what you mean. When I went to New York I spent the whole time excitedly pointing at things that I'd seen on TV and films my whole life. Cops, New York City taxis, diners, yellow school buses, traffic lights hanging over the road. I was like a little kid. Also, special mention to the people of New York who I was expecting to be rude and unhelpful. I don't know why, I just was, whereas they were the exact opposite. Every time we stopped to look at a street sign or consult a map someone would stop and ask if we needed any help or anything. Every time. Be it a guy in a suit on his way to work, or a young girl on her way from school, or a guy in overalls cleaning the street. Everyone was so friendly and helpful. I just didn't expect it. As they say, a New Yorker says go duck yourself and means have a nice day, whereas a southerner says have a nice day when they mean go duck yourself. How much Indian food there was in London. Not just London. Practically every high street in the UK has at least one. That's the great thing about having an empire. When your food is shut, just go out and acquire other people's. It's really a part of the culture now. I mean, tikka masala was invented in Glasgow. Tons of food you wouldn't associate with the UK was made here. It's why everyone thinks the UK has shutty food. All the good food is credited to other countries. I got laughed at by a taxi driver in Romania for putting my seatbelt on. In Argentina the belt will probably be buried under the seat. If you ask for it, the driver will get it out for you all serious and everything. Going all oh, certainly sir, excuse the inconvenience sir, like the finest butler, but be sure he will be laughing inside, and this will be a topic of conversation with his colleagues later. Falling snow. I'm Australian, so while we have snow, the chances of experiencing falling snow when you're on holidays is slim. The first time I experienced falling snow was when I was in Paris at the age of 20. I lost my shit, squealing and had a ball. Everyone probably thought I was crazy, but for me, it was magical and amazing. Swedish babies are hardcore, and people are awesomely chill and friendly. In mid-January, it was knee-deep snow everywhere, yet in Stockholm, it was pretty common to see parents enjoying a drink at a cafe, with a queue of prams outside in the snow. The babies are wrapped up heavily, yes, but they are fully comfortable leaving them outside like that. No fears over child thievery, or worries about the cold. These kids are brought up to be metal right from the word go. It's awesome. I imagine if you tried that in the UK, or especially US, there'd be hysteria and child services would relieve you of your parenting. Swedish person here. Today I learned child thievery is a thing. It's not really, but people freak out over it anyway. How empty and untershade New Zealand is. I mean, you didn't see their tourist ad. It won several Oscars. I went to a gun shop in Texas in a large town. It was midweek. I couldn't believe how crowded the place was. I mean, I knew guns are a big thing in Texas, but to imagine that there was this many people wanting a gun at one of several gun shops at this time of the week was very interesting. Anyway, got a few happy snaps with some giant firearms. When I visited Hollywood, I couldn't believe how disgustingly dirty it was and how unsafe I felt. It may just have been that I was unlucky enough to experience a couple of crazy incidences in my first 2 nights, but it definitely wasn't all the glitz and glamour that I was expecting. Basically all of LA Southern California is like that. Expensive, crowded, and disgusting. Unless you have a shit ton of money, then it's even more expensive, but less crowded and disgusting. San Diego would like a word with you. The differences between northern and southern Italy. It's like night and day. Edit. For those still asking what the difference is, think of England, but in reverse, and with more sunshine. Goes to Milan. Wow, I did not expect this at all. It's so cosmopolitan, so bustling and organized. It's more like France or Germany than what I imagined Italy to be. Man, where did all those Italian stereotypes come from anywhere? Goes to Naples. Ah. Spotted a Ferris wheel and resort surrounding a reservoir in Afghanistan. Wasn't prepared for that at all. Edit. Also, the social aggressiveness of females in Iceland. They will court a male in a heartbeat. Shops are closed on Sunday in France, except Subway and McDonald's. Not only France, Austria, Germany, Swiss also. and I think many other countries from Europe. How many US flags were everywhere? Just looking down a street you'd lose track, after counting a dozen or so. The sheer huge size of everything too in the U.S and the cheap cost of junk food. Canada, that the friendly and polite stereotypes were actually incredibly true in my experiences. I loved it. The weather still shocked me, even though I knew Canada got cold, until I experienced 2 Canadian winters. I could never have even understood what that type of cold felt like. Other things, the amount of amazing squirrels, Canada's rampant marijuana culture. I'd heard of BC bud, but I didn't expect to smell weed every time I went outside somewhere. In South Korea there is no separate shower in the bathroom. The shower head sprays directly on the floor and there is a drain in the corner of the room. This is true in most of Asia. I like it. Makes cleaning so much easier. So jealous. In the UK we often have ducking carpet in our bathroom toilet.